Good afternoon from Incheon. We are about to start the second ESCAP-GTI Seminar on transport issues in Northeast Asia. With our session this afternoon being recorded, we highly appreciate your support in keeping your camera off and microphone muted. Kindly post your queries and comments on today's discussions on the chat box. Thank you. Now for our opening session, may I now give the floor to Mr. Gumbold Basanjaf, Head of ESCAP East and Northeast Asia Office, to deliver his remarks.
Thank you, Fee. Good afternoon, colleagues, and good morning as well. Warm greetings from ESCAP in Incheon. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the second ESCAP-GTI Seminar on transport issues. This is an annual joint event which is held in conjunction with the GTI Transport Board meetings. It is quite an understatement to say that a lot has happened since we launched this joint activity back in October 2019 in Ulaanbaatar. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused disruptions across the board, adversely affecting all sectors, and preserving seamless connectivity within and across borders proved to be one of the challenges that need to be addressed, especially early on into the crisis. Countries have implemented transport-related policy measures ranging from keeping border crossing open for freight to ensuring transport health and safety, as well as preserving smooth transport operations and processes. These were complemented with customs-related and other trade facilitation measures. Of course, those were not easy tasks. Going forward, we are at this juncture where recovery from the effects of the pandemic is gaining ground at the back of accelerating vaccination programs across economies, including in our East and Northeast Asian subregion. This time also provides an opportunity for us to be more forward-looking in our perspectives. In the context of transport, there are opportunities to build on lessons learned to strengthen crisis preparedness and resilience of transport connectivity in line with sustainable development. Beyond the disruptions to operational connectivity, the pandemic also showed the vulnerabilities to shocks of those involved, including transport and trade operators, regulators and health inspectors, as well as border officials. To this end, more importantly, the crisis reinforced the need for closer coordination among sectors, both within each government and across countries. In this regard, we recognize that the transport sector, being an important component of connectivity, is indeed well positioned to work and engage with other sectors, generating momentum in addressing issues of common interest. So we appreciate the strong support from all of you, shown by the broad-based participation in today's seminar. The GTI sectorial bodies are well represented this afternoon, including not only GTI officials involved with the GTI Transport Board, but also officials from other GTI sectoral bodies involved in the cooperation areas of transport and trade. These include officials and members from the Trade and Investment Committee and its Customs Subcommittee, Local Cooperation Committee, and its Logistics Subcommittee, Northeast Asia Business Association, Northeast Asia Exim Banks Association, GTI Research Institutions Network, GTI Development Partners. Your presence has allowed us an entry point to engage with you. Through the first session in today's seminar, we aim to bring out areas where coordination on subregional connectivity involved in transport and trade facilitation could be strengthened. The second session allows us to hear the views of GTI sectoral bodies based on the context of their work on how cross-sectoral linkages could be further enhanced in the context of the GTI framework. Even more so, beyond the exchanges of information and views this afternoon, we hope to take forward the outcomes of today's discussions to work with GTI sectoral bodies in developing joint outputs and activities that would help promote cross-sectoral coordination and cooperation. I believe this cross-sectoral approach facilitates our work in the right direction. For one, it proactively addresses the demands of our time, given future challenges are likely to have impacts across a broad range of sectors. Also, it appropriately aligns with the directions of expanding intersectoral cooperation within the platform of GTI highlighted in several meetings of the GTI Consultative Committee. In this context, indeed, our motivation is strong to engage well and productively in the next 2 hours. I look forward to hearing from you, your participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Basanjaf. May I now give the floor to Mr. Andres Morodin, Director of the GTI Secretariat, for his remarks.
Thank you, Fee. Dear Mr. Eom Yong-song, dear Mr. Gangbold Basanjaf, distinguished members of the GTI boards, committees and associations, transport experts, and development partners, good afternoon and good morning to those who are in Moscow. Well, I'd like to thank the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport of the Republic of Korea for co-hosting this seminar as the chair of the GTI Transport Board. My sincere gratitude also goes to ESCAP for their strong support of the GTI cooperation and their initiative to organize the ESCAP-GTI Seminar on transport issues on a regular basis. Our today's seminar is being held under the theme of cross-sectoral linkages toward resilient connectivity. In this regard, we are glad to witness a wide range of participation from GTI's sectorial boards and committees, Exim banks and business associations, research institutions, networks, as well as local cooperation committee. We look forward to in-depth discussion and valuable insights from them. Besides, we are pleased to see that partners from GIZ, Trilateral Cooperation Secretariat, and Asian infrastructure banks showed interest and joined us today. With the world facing the unprecedented challenges, we recognize the need for closer coordination among sectors within GTI and enhancing our exchanges and deepening cooperation with other international and regional institutions. This also goes in line with the declaration of the 9th GTI Consultative Commission held December last, where the CC members stated that amidst the pandemic, maintaining resilience of supply chains, free, inclusive, non-discriminatory, transparent, predictable and stable trade and investment environment in the region are much more essential than any other time and encouraged full utilization of GTI's cooperation channels. During the seminar, we will hear outcomes of the researches conducted by ESCAP on policy coordination between transport and trade facilitation, transport connectivity, and digitalization in transport. A GTI Research Institution network member, Korea Institute for International Economic Policy, will introduce the outcome of the evolution of regional value chain and logistics networks in Greater Domain region. Later, we look forward to opinions from our GTI stakeholders on the cross-sectoral issues which may need closer coordination among various sectors within the GTI. The findings and recommendations from today's seminar should lay the basis for drafting our plans for follow-up activities. Once again, we attach great importance in strengthening partnership with the GTI stakeholders as well as with other international and regional organizations. Please allow me to give my warmest welcome and wish all of us productive and efficient meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smorodin. As we all know, the seminar is held annually in conjunction with the GTI Transport Board meetings. This year, Republic of Korea is the country chair of the GTI Transport Board. May I now give the floor to Mr. Eom Yong-soo, Director General of the Comprehensive Transport Policy Bureau of the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport of Republic of Korea for his remarks.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I am Oh Myung-so, Director General for Comprehensive Transport Policy at the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport of the Republic of Korea. It gives me great pleasure to participate in the second ESCAP-GTI Seminar on transport issues ahead of the 10th GTI Transport Board meeting, which will be held tomorrow. I would like to express my gratitude to Director Smolodin of the GTI Secretariat and Mr. Basanjav, Head of ESCAP ENEA Office, as well as the staff members for organizing today's seminar. I would also like to thank fellow participants for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us in today's event. It was very unfortunate that we could not hold the GTI Transport Boarding meeting last year due to the unexpected spread of COVID-19. All of us are still struggling to contain the spread of the virus. Amid such a challenging time, I am delighted and encouraged to see you all, even though this meeting is taking place online. While organizing today's seminar, I've heard that there was much discussion between the GTI Secretariat and my ministry on when and how the seminar should proceed. Such active discussion reaffirmed the commitment and passion of the GTI Secretariat and the ESCAP ENEA office towards this seminar. Next year marks the 30th anniversary of the Tumon River Area Development Program, or TRADP, which was launched by the country surrounding the Tumon River to promote regional cooperation on economic development. Through the support from the GTI and UNESCAP, research has been conducted in diverse areas for enhancing regional connectivity and cooperation in Northeast Asia. Such research contributes greatly to establishing transportation routes in border areas in the Northeast Asian region, and also to addressing challenges arising from the differences in transport system, such as railway and trade and border control systems between the country in the Tumon region. Meanwhile, Korea has been working on site demonstration of advanced transport-related technology, including high-speed railways, autonomous vehicles, and smart tolling system on expressways. In this fast-developing field of transport technology, Korea will be able to contribute to strengthening transport connectivity in Northeast Asia by working closely with other GTI member countries. Going forward, I hope to see more vibrant exchange and networking among various research institutes of GTI member countries, which will lay the ground for enhanced regional cooperation and economic growth in Northeast Asia. Today's meeting is being held in such a difficult time in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. I hope we make the most of this opportunity by having diverse and constructive discussions on ways to enhance our cooperation for stronger transport connectivity in Northeast Asia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ayo. At this point, may I seek the kind indulgence of Mr. Baasanjav, Mr. Smolodin, and Mr. Ayo to keep their cameras on for a brief picture taking. It will be facilitated by our IT. Yes. Okay, on my count, 1, 2, 3. Another one, please. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. At this juncture, we now shift gear to start the seminar sessions. I am Fee Sadikon from ESCAP INEA office. For session 1, we have 5 panelists. Their presentations would provide context and background on the latest developments on connectivity, drawing attention to policy areas and issues where there are needs as well as opportunities for stronger cross-sectoral linkages. To start with, we have Ms. Varvara Kechetova. We are working closely with Varvara in finalizing a sub-regional study on East and Northeast Asia to identify policy areas and approaches for more policy coordination between trade and transport facilitation. Varvara would present the highlights of the draft study. We are looking forward to hearing your presentation, Varvara. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, ESCAP Secretariat for East and Northeast Asia, for trusting me with implementing of this really interesting and exciting study. Next slide, please. We start with this small highlight. And first, we look at the domestic situation, because domestic situation is basis on which policy coordination in our region develops. Next slide, please. So, if we talk some building blocks for trade and transport facilitation in East and Northeast Asia, we can notice that single window for international trade are at different stage of developments in most of the countries across the sub-region. So this sub-region is one of the that started to develop digital services for trade and transport as early as 1977 and 1980s in Japan and Republic of Korea. And now they, along with China, are leaders in development of such platforms for both their transport operations and export-import companies. So while in Japan and Republic of Korea, all actors might go to one system, in Russia and Russian Federation and China, they might need to go to separate system for transport permits and documents and for documentation on export-import operations. But anyway, most of the countries have some systems in place. If we talk about logistic information system, we have developed in the 3 countries, China, Japan, and Republic of Korea. Most of the countries have authorized economic operators program. Now, with China as member of TIR conventions, in 4 countries we can use YETIR Carnet for transit operations, and China also implements an experiment with Mongolia on implementation of secure smart lock mechanism on transit on railways. Russian Federation has also system in place for transit and electronic navigation sales. So since our region is quite advanced in technologies for transport and trade facilitation, we are already using some emerging technologies. So, for example, China and Republic of Korea actively experimenting with using blockchain for secure and traceable transactions in export-import. And in Japan and China, customs authorities are experimenting with using artificial intelligence and other advanced technologies within smart customs initiatives. Next slide, please. So what are some areas of policy coordination in the region? Next slide, please. We start with customs cooperation. So our countries, they do have quite extensive network of agreements on customs mutual assistance and cooperation as recommended by revised Kyoto conventions. But they're not limit themselves to these agreements. They also have separate agreements and protocols on exchange of information, including snapshots from customs inspection complexes, mutual recognitions of results of custom controls, and exchange of personal goods and means of transport. However, none of this extended on sub-regional level. So there is room for improvement and geographical expansion in that exchange between customs in sub-region, and this process interoperability between national single windows of foreign trade might help. Next slide, please. So when we talk that our customs cooperation is not extended for the whole region, we have, for example, only one example of joint customs control, and it is happening between China and Mongolia. Harmonized cargo manifest to speed up inspection and operations implemented since 2009 between the countries, and in 2019 it went digital. And based on mutual recognition and inspection results and regular meetings on Joint Customs Control Committee. Next goal on this cooperation is implementation of cross-border transport under secure lock we talked previously. And next slide, please. So another aspect is mutual recognition of IO status. So, most of the countries have the program, and they do are now in the process of concluding bilateral agreements. GTI already has drafted mutual recognition arrangement of IO status, but it is not yet enforced, and again, it does not cover the whole sub-region. Next slide, please. There is example of multilateral customs cooperation. It is between China, Mongolia, and Russian Federation. It is based on agreement between Federal Customs Service, General Administration of Customs of the People's Republic of China, and General Authority for Customs Taxation in Mongolia. There is an agreement of mutual recognition of results, also based on bilateral customs cooperations and protocols, and based on use of secure lock-in mechanism, electronic exchange of data, and mutual recognition of inspection results. Next slide, please. So this trilateral cooperation of customs support development of economic corridor of China, Mongolia, and the Russian Federation. There is a program with projects and transport, trade and customs, trade facilitation, customs cooperation, and it's also supported by an intergovernmental agreement on international road transport along Asian highway network that regulates international transport under trilateral road permits on Asian highway sections of Asian Highway 3 and 4. Next slide, please. And it is also supported by other transport cooperation policy, but again, it's only one corridor and we have 6 countries in the region. In transport policy coordination on road transport, there is a complete network of road transport agreement, and it also supported by agreement between China and Republic of Korea on sea and intermodal transport of goods. It's about exchange of trailers and chassis that traveling by ferries. There is an agreement between Mongolia and China, Mongolia and Russian access to the seaport. There are railway agreements, OSGD, and strategic cooperation agreement between railways of China and Russian Federation, and agreement between Mongolia and Russian Federation transit of goods by rail. Next slide, please. What is lacking in our sub-region is multimodal transport document, and I believe Fodor Kormilsin will talk about this in a minute in detail. So our takeaway here is that right now there is no unified multimodal document. We have to rely on documentation by mode, which brings also questions of liability, it complicates procedures, and increased complexity across supply chain. Next slide, please. There is also an experiment and pilot made with the help of ESCAP, Asia Pacific Regional Assembly of the International Union of Railways, FESCO, Transportation Group and Russian Railways. So in the absence of sub-regional agreement of legal framework, international legal framework, they developed a product that looks like a unified program for a user. So a customer supplies information once time, and then all the operations needed to get cargo from Japan or China across the territory of the Russian Federation are processed electronically. It's something to be explored by the countries. Again, I believe Fedor will talk about this more. Next slide, please. Logistic information services. So we have a really prominent example in our region is Logistic Information Service NIALNet for 3 countries, Japan, China, Republic of Korea. You can see on the slide, you can track vessel, you can track your cargoes, you can get information on ports, and it's unifies 3 logistics information systems that are already agreed. There are plans to work more on standards on unified logistics information and sub-regions. There are plans to expand the system to the ports of Russian Far East, ASEAN, European Union. However, again, this solution at this point still does not cover the whole Northeast Asia system, sub-region. Next slide, please. So, and freight trade agreements last in this review. So, countries of East and Northeast Asia really value free trade agreements. They together participate in over 60 of them. However, if we look at what happened in the region, there are some bilateral agreements, and in terms of multinational free trade agreements, at best thing we have is 3 of our countries within one bloc, but none of them cover. But there is nothing that would cover the whole sub-region. Next slide, please. So, and now to summarize, what are lacunae, what are gaps in multilateral coordination on trade and transport facilitation in our sub-region? So we have data exchange between customs authorities, but it's an early stage and mostly bilateral. We have single windows for foreign trade. Well, in Mongolia, it may be not full-fledged single window, but it's a good start. But then there's no interoperability between them. We have example of joint custom control, but it's only between 2 countries. There is a mutual recognition arrangement for authorized economic operators, and there is an understanding that it is needed, but it is not enforced yet. And again, it does not cover the whole sub-region. Well, we are in need of something to facilitate multimodal transport operations, but it's still under discussion. There is no sub-regional logistic information system to track cargo, to acquire freight rates, to access regulations of partner countries, to know where to address if we have problems with a cargo or we plan some business operations. There is no secure transit scheme at sub-regional level. We have some for road, we have some pieces for railway, we have, and they're separately, they're not united. And there is no free trade agreement. Next slide, please. Then now reflections on the way forward. That may be a little bit longer, not as fast as we did this jumping over all those points. Next slide, please. So what we talk about with sub-regional office, there are several areas where policy coordination would benefit facilitation of trade and transport and Northeast Asia. First area is improving legal regime for trade and transport connectivity. What it means is creating sub-regionally unified or compatible multimodal transport laws that would include clarification and tools for addressing liability issues that would create unified multimodal transport document if needed. Next, we need to establish working actual multilateral mechanism for mutual recognition of IO status. Here we mean putting to work the GTI arrangement and maybe expanding it beyond GTI. Next, there is a possibility of multilateral customs cooperation agreements to lay legal foundation for a real big range of facilitation measures that require data exchange, mutual recognition of inspection results on issue documentation, and other measures that we'll talk later. Finally, East and Northeast Asia can make more use of already existing international legal documents. For example, we talk about agreement on international road transport on Asian highway routes. It can be expanded to more routes. We can deeper enforce electronic TIR carnet. Countries may consider joining framework agreement on facilitation of cross-border paperless trade in Asia and Pacific. Second area that we think may be beneficial for countries to focus on is technological and operational solutions for everything that we talked before. Such solutions may include joint customs control on one-stop border ports. This means that control is implemented on either side and then accepted at the other. The establishment of such space would require legal base and established agreed procedures, established data exchange, and mutual recognition results. I'm sorry, it's repeating because it's one piece, but it really goes deeper in a lot of measures that we can implement it. Other part of such solution is secure transit, and we can expand solutions that are already working in the Russian Federation between China and Mongolia. With the level of technological advancement we have in East and Northeast Asia, the sub-regional deployment of such scheme is more than feasible. And this technological advancement we have in the sub-region makes also feasible the third area of policy coordination. First, we talk about creating interoperability between national single windows. Well, this can look at any way that countries deem possible and acceptable for them. Of course, there should be a really close look in how to ensure data safety, traceability, and how to accommodate needed functionality, data formats. It might be challenging to develop a sub-regional single window because we don't have a trade bloc or customs union, but any platform that would guide participants of countries to see how they can join access authorities or regulation information or maybe statistical data of the other countries, it would certainly help and will be a great value for all 6 countries. Then we talk about the sub-regional logistic information platform with secure access to trade and transport operations, to tracking to information leaks to reported authorities, to access for freight, to access for financial services. It would strengthen doing business environment. NailNet is a great starting point. Next is the idea that countries might think about creating a digital transport corridor. What is a digital transport corridor? Is basically a unified information space where all the actors involved in supply chain, they operators, exporters, importers, control authorities, financial service providers of guarantees, they can interact on operational processes. They submit document, create document, exchange information, trace and track their transactions and cargo. A lot of technological solutions that we already have in Northeast Asia, they are ready-made building blocks for such digital corridor. And the Intran project, electronic seals with their supportive information system, a NailNet single window program, platforms, all of them, they're already here. And see the elements of blockchains that are already tried by China, Republic of Korea, we can allow for secure transactions, and there are already blockchain-based platforms for logistics and trade, such as TradeLanes, Cadena. Countries might find benefits in looking and investigate this issue because blockchain it provides traceability of information, and you can see we can be sure that if a piece of information went out from us, it will not be changed. We will see if it was. Well, of course, there are a lot of issues to discuss, starting from what we do with electronic waste that will be produced by all the equipment and how we have enough energy to use and what will be legal basis for such operations. But these discussions would be worthwhile. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for that comprehensive view of the highlights of our sub-regional study, in particular drawing attention to already existing joint initiatives, which could be used as building blocks for strengthening and deepening cross-sectoral coordination. So taking off from this comprehensive view, the succeeding presentations would now elaborate on more specific areas and issues, providing updates on recent developments. So for the next presentation, we have Mr. Fedor Kormelitisin. Fedor is our ESCAP colleague from the Transport Division. We are looking forward to hearing your presentation, Fedor. Thank you. Fedor is online.
Good afternoon.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So let me start sharing the screen now. Just a moment. Sorry, just a little issue with the...
No worries.
Yes, is it now visible?
It's now visible. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry for this little delay. So it's my great pleasure to present today to this seminar and to inform of some important activities which ESCAP works on in terms of transport, which are basically of regional scope. However, they are all absolutely also applicable to the countries which belong to our Eastern Northeast Asia subregion and to the countries which participate in the Greater Tumen initiative as well. Also some of the topics which I'm going to very briefly cover now were also are covered by or mentioned by previous speakers. So basically I have three topics to inform about. And the first one is the matter of harmonization of legal frameworks for multimodal transport, which Varvara touched upon. Actually, you know, it's a very timely task, although quite a challenging task, because this is true, as mentioned, so far there is no solution for a multimodal transport document or a multimodal transport legal instrument in force, not only in Asia and the Pacific region, but worldwide as well. There were some previous attempts made, and although so far there are no success stories, there is a strong demand for this type of harmonization of legal frameworks, and the Secretariat is working on this. Actually, this work was initiated based on the request of the third meeting of the Working Group on Dry Ports in November 2019, which was reconfirmed by a very recent fourth meeting of the same working group held early in June this year. So ESCAP has initiated and is implementing a project on this topic, which analyzed existing legal frameworks for multimodal transport operations in the region and beyond, and held already two expert group meetings, which were aimed to identify the modalities and options for and approaches for harmonization of legal frameworks for this types of transport operations. Actually, at the first meeting, there were 4 options identified, including development of a new legal instrument on multimodal transport. Another one is a development of guidelines that could serve the harmonization of national laws and regulations on multimodal transport operations, as well as dissemination of existing standardized recommended contractual rules, and finally just the elaboration of a new soft law tool. So these options were thoroughly discussed at the meeting, at the second expert meeting, which was held relatively recently in the end of March. And also before the meeting, And after the meeting, so we had an active survey questionnaire on the preferable options, because what we are going to do is to gradually narrow down the number of options to identify how do we approach the process of this harmonization of legal frameworks for multimodal transport. So we have got response from around 30 member states, including mostly, as you may see, most respondents were from ministries and government agencies, but also there was a number of respondents from non-governmental organizations or transport industry representatives. So now it is quite apparent, judging by the response, that we have two options which we will be working a little bit in parallel. At the second meeting, and further confirmed by the results of the survey, the majority of our member states are in favor of gradual approach to this extremely complicated matter, and identified preparation of a regional guideline for harmonization of national legal system. At the same time, not dropping the option of developing a new legal instrument, a new international treaty. So these are two directions in which we will be working further. And actually, as for the treaty, also that's another matter to be further discussed and finalized, because they can be a regional instrument which inevitably will be probably more or less a framework document. However, if there is a group of countries belonging to a certain subregion or a certain transport corridor, we can also facilitate the work on more detailed legal instruments, shall we call it corridor-based, because for a smaller group of countries, it can be, so we can attempt to develop an instrument which would be more comprehensive and more practical. Another matter which was raised at the working group on dry ports very recently is that we can also explore the possibility of developing an annex to the intergovernmental agreement on dry ports, which could cover the matters of facilitating multimodal transport operations. That's basically a very brief information on the legal framework for multimodal transport operations. If participants have any questions, I would be happy to reply. Second topic, that's another important direction of our work, is developing transport connectivity between Asia and Europe. And I think all the countries which belong to GTI are quite important players in terms of developing interregional transport connectivity. Last year, ESCAP published a study report. You can see the cover and the link to the study report on connecting transport infrastructure networks in Asia and Europe, which is quite a brief and action-oriented document with a broad list of topics to be addressed in terms of enhancing interregional transport connectivity, which can serve as a basis for short, mid, and long-term action plans on enhancing interregional connectivity. So, and our intention is to work towards elaboration of the plan of concerted actions which and priorities which could be identified by our member states. With that, we are also planning to, as suggested by the study report, and the approach was supported by the Committee on Transport held in November last year, is organizing periodical interregional fora. In the future, so we want this fora to help move towards some concerted actions. And so we are planning one forum within this year. So the exact dates will be identified very soon, but this will be in the second half of September this year and early October this year. Most likely it will be still a virtual event. I will be happy to welcome participants from ENEA sub-region and from GTI to that meeting. So we will send out the invitations in due course. Finally, also very briefly, as regards the COVID response, I think my colleague Sandeep will also be touching upon this topic. So we are implementing a quick response interagency project on transport and trade connectivity in the age of pandemics. And one of the components of this project is development of crisis response through upgrading agreements on international land transport in Asia and the Pacific. And we have recently published a study report. You can see the cover of this study report and the link to the study report. And this study report contains practical suggestions on how to enhance provisions in bilateral agreements on road transport, on mutual assistance, which could be instrumental in handling crises like today's COVID-related crisis, and maybe future other crises, which hopefully will never happen. However, better to be prepared. What do we mean by that? We analyzed most important bilateral agreements, also some multilateral agreements on road transport. Actually, same applies to rail transport, but the report on road transport component is already published. For the railway, we will publish later. But actually, it's the same kind of situation. In most agreements, there are some very generic articles on mutual assistance in critical situations and in emergency situations, which basically are declarations that parties will do their best to provide such an assistance. But normally, those agreements never go beyond those declarations. And as showcased by the COVID-19 crisis, unfortunately, these provisions do not work. So we need to go further. ESCAP Secretariat suggests that countries consider updating the existing bilateral agreements, especially on road transport, and include some concrete measures of mutual assistance, or also on risk mitigation in the bilateral agreement. And we actually have very concrete proposals on how to formulate these articles, these clauses. Unfortunately, there is no time for today's meeting to give you all the details, but we would be happy if you could look through this study report. And we will be planning further capacity building activities, not necessarily regional, because in the end, if some groups of countries or some parties and some bilateral agreements would be interested to update or to upgrade their agreements using our suggestions, we will be happy to facilitate that. So, just to conclude these pieces of information, we would like to, on behalf of Transport Division, I would like to encourage all the member states of East and Northeast Asia and all the member states of GTI to participate actively in those activities. We believe they are relevant for your countries, and we will be quite happy if you find them relevant as well. So from our side, we will be updating you by inviting to relevant meetings, including the Eurasian Transport Forum, including the third expert meeting on multimodal legal frameworks, which we will have before the end of this year, most likely in November this year, where we will expected to decide on the final set of options, which actually we know, but experts need to reconfirm these two options, which will constitute the concept for harmonization of legal framework for multimodal transport operations. Finally, so we will also have a number of capacity building activities on COVID response, including road and rail transport agreements, and we will keep you posted about this activities, and we will be happy to see your respective countries participating in them. With that, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. Should you have any questions, I would be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Fedor. Thank you for that, especially bringing light into the key areas which emerged as challenges during the COVID-19 pandemic. In that context, one issue which also came to the fore during the pandemic was how to preserve seamless connectivity without compromising the safety and health of those involved. So in this context, the use of technology to support contactless and efficient connectivity processes have been discussed. So in this regard, we have Mr. Sandeep Jain, also our colleague from the ESCAP colleague from Transport Division, to share on these developments. Sandeep, we are looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Fee. I hope you can see my presentation.
Yes, we could see it. Thank you.
Yes. So, Mr. Gunvold, distinguished colleagues from the GTI Secretariat, distinguished members from the Ministries of Transport and Related Trade from the GTI member countries, representatives of other organizations, it really gives me a great pleasure to join this meeting today. So, as Fee has mentioned, I will speak on some of the work on railway. And before I go into my presentation, I would like to reiterate the feeling which most of us have in international transport, that this pandemic, if anything, has clearly demonstrated the resilience of international railway transport. The traffic between Europe, China, Europe corridors has actually increased year on year. And we see how in each country railway transport has played a crucial role in meeting the supplies, transporting other important and maintaining the essential supply chains. So with this, let me give a bit of a structure to my presentation. And let me see if I can move it. Yeah, so basically I have three parts to my presentation. And first, briefly, an overview of Intergovernmental Agreement on Trans-Asian Railway Network. So most of you are members of this network. So it makes a lot of sense to keep bringing it up, because this is a regional network which connects our railways of the region. And I will talk a little bit more about it later, why it is important. And though it was envisaged as an infrastructure agreement, but increasingly we see a lot of deliberations on operational connectivity issues. Again, I'll allude to it a little bit more. And then I'll give you some sense of current work and future priorities to strengthen international railway transport. And I was really encouraged by presentation from Barbara and the study she has done. A lot of the ideas which are there, we are already trying to build them in our work. So let me go So this is a kind of a, most of you might have seen it, but this is a map of the Trans-Asian Railway network. You can see different colors there. They basically indicate the gauge of the lines. The red colors indicates the Russian gauge, which is 1520 mm. The green color is a standard gauge of 1435 mm. In South Asia, you can see extra broad gauge, and towards Southeast Asia, you can see the meter gauge. So one interesting development which is happening in the Southeast Asia is the fast construction of Lao-China Railway. And that has a potential to link the entire Southeast Asia to the wider Trans-Asian Railway network. And it would have implications for GTI countries because many of those trains could traverse through some of your countries. So, so what is interesting about this agreement is that we have a working group. So this is a background which I've already spoke. This network was formalized by intergovernmental agreement that has entered into force in 2009. It is a coordinated plan developed by ESCAP member countries to develop a regional rail network, right? So what is important in this agreement is a working group, which is a regional platform for member countries to address the persistent and emerging issues and also harness the emerging opportunities to international railway transport. So we have already had 6 meetings of this working group. Oh, sorry, 7th, last one was 7th. So before that, during the 5th meeting, the issues related to cooperation with customs started to figuring in the discussions. And this was very clear that the international railway transport cannot help smoothly without a pragmatic and realistic cooperation with customs that is harmonized. And during the 6th meeting, there was a very high focus on electronic information exchange among railways, how it can be harmonized, because a lot of countries were taking steps in this direction. And during the 7th meeting, which took place virtually just a month back in May 20 and 21st, the government of Iran, they proposed an annex to our agreement on guiding principles to harmonize electronic information exchange between railways and among railways and control agencies. And we got in principle support from the bigger railways, and we will be working in due course on this annex. The whole purpose is to bring harmonization as far as possible to various initiatives which are taking place in this direction. Because you will understand that if a train starts from, say, China and it has to go to some country in Europe, along the corridor, particularly in Central Asia, if it goes, then there are a number of countries. And if there is information is blocked, then the regulators, customs, and the neighboring railways will not be able to complete the required formalities. And that can reduce the competitiveness of international railway transport. So this is a kind of very important work which the railways have to do. So on electronic information exchange, this is the big thing which has taken place in our region, and we are going to help countries in whatever possible ways by undertaking small projects. For example, we are now doing something with countries in Central Asia, particularly Iran, how the information exchange electronically can be better between its neighbors. In addition, we are working on focus areas. There are 10 of them, and I'll quickly go through them. The whole idea of these issues is how railway transport can further become more sustainable. So when it comes to transport, railway, of course, is the central pillar of sustainability, but there are areas where we can do better to even deepen that effect. So as I said, electronic information exchange and its promotion continues to be our outstanding task. And the second one is harmonization of customs formalities for international railway transport. And I would like to go back to presentation by Barbara, where she was alluding to joint controls. So we have actually captured all this. There are 7-8 items, and we can actually discuss probably at GTI or any other forum where we have actually distilled 7 areas where customs formalities can be harmonized between the countries. And I would like to say that GTI countries are very important for international railway transport. And much of the transport, international railway transport, happens across your countries into Europe.
It's 15 hours.
Sorry. So harmonization of customs formality is very important. We have already taken a substantial steps in this regard, and we are working with OSJD to finalize this study report, and we will be presenting it. Some of the other, apart from joint controls, which we have recommended, some of the other things is the use of technologies. So, and the sharing of information, because railway transport, and particularly at border crossing, you don't need to invest heavily if other railway has already done investments. So you can actually share the information either through moving scanners or big X-ray machines. So there can be a sharing of information about what is contained in this. So there are a lot of other things, including the consignment note as a transit document. So there are, as I mentioned, around 7 items which can be considered for harmonization. Then we have started working on facilitation of international passenger railway transport. So this is a big area which is not explored fully in our region, though there is a lot of international passenger transport happening in 15-20 mm region, but there is a lot of gaps, particularly in others. So we are trying to see how best we can encourage international passenger railway transport, given that particularly for short distance, where the air transportation might become either economically not very a good proposition, or even emissions wise also. And then strengthening port hinterland sustainable railway connectivity. Again, it has some connections with the presentation by Barbara, where she alluded to use of electronic seals. So this is something very encouraging we have seen in South Asia, where a lot of simplification of process has taken place. As soon as the containers are taken off from the ships, they are put on rail and electronically sealed to move towards the landlocked country. I think something similar can be conceived for Mongolia also. As soon as the containers comes in I think in port of China, I think Tianjin, and then from there you can have electronic seal, and then it's not only about technological solution, it leads to a lot of simplification, a lot of reduction in paperwork and streamlining of processes. So you can do a lot with this, and we at ESCAP has done enormous work in these technologies. Then we are also supporting railway corridor management structures. Recently, we have already finalized a corridor management mechanism for Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Iran railway corridor. And again, actually, it is a step towards what you have done in China, Mongolia, Russia. We are taking a gradual, and their countries hopefully are taking gradual steps from rail to trade and to eventually economic corridor. So let me quickly go through the remaining things. So we have also developed a geographical information-based system, which we will be launching online. It is, you can see the entire Trans-Asian Railway network, which are the lines shown by for member countries to view. And also we will supplement with other modeling tools as to how the railway decisions, operational and planning can be optimized. So very important, which Fedro was mentioning during the pandemic, we launched a project on, United Nations launched a project on trade and transport connectivity in the times of pandemics, with focusing on smart and, contactless, seamless and collaborative solutions. So under that, we did this study on smart railway solutions, and it is available online, and maybe I will, if time permitted, I'll just try to take you to that link. It's a very comprehensive study where first part we have captured the emerging trends in the railway transport, the new developments that are taking place in terms of development of infrastructure. We are also seeing the trains of like mail trains to serve the e-commerce. Then a lot of trains are also carrying perishable goods. So a lot of developments are discussed there, followed by a repository of smart solutions on various areas like maintenance of railways, operation of railways, how you can have more paperless transactions at the railway terminals. And there are also some ideas on smart financing for railways, how better railway infrastructure can be financed. And part of it is the next, that is the digitalization in railways in the ESCAP region. So this is a huge area, and we know the countries in the ESCAP region are diverse. Some of them, particularly in your area, Russian Federation, China has really very well and advanced railways and digitalization strategies, but many countries are still in the very primitive stage. And so we are trying to see what sort of things a regional cooperation and ESCAP can do to heighten overall digitalization among railways in the ESCAP region. And so we are working on some sort of a strategy for that. So as I said, railway, and the next is the rail decarbonization. So rail is already a very clean mode of transport, but still a lot of traction takes place through diesel. And there is also a lot of non-traction work which goes on diesel. And so a lot of countries are now working on hydrogen and hybrid and battery technologies. So it would be enormously important for countries which have a high proportion of diesel traction to look at some of those technologies now as to how they can plan their railway systems to encourage decarbonization. And finally, and very important, is how we can increase the share of railway freight. And on this, there are no uniform prescription. Our region, as I said, railways are very diverse. The mix of transport in each country is unique. So there cannot be any clear prescriptions about how to increase railway transport, railway freight. But some of the things which are very important for rail freight is consolidation of cargoes, and therefore dry ports should be strategically located along main terminals. And then the rail itself, railway transport has to integrate seamlessly in other modes of transport. They have to work for end-to-end solutions. Because railway has deep access, but it sadly lacks on end-to-end connections where they have to rely on other modes of transport, particularly road. Therefore, there is need to build partnership with logistic service providers to provide end-to-end rail solutions. So these were the things I wanted to deliver today in my presentation, but let me say last few. Okay, so this slide is basically showing our analytical products. We've done extensive study on railway transport issues, which are reflected there. And let me see if I can go to Smart Railway Solutions study. I have clicked it, so yeah. I hope you can see my slide still. So it is navigating to ESCAP, and here is the study, which is available for download, and you can see it, Smart Railway Solutions study. Okay, so and then this brings me to the end of my presentation, Fee, and I want to thank you very much for the time this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Sandip. And in fact, your presentation on the digitalization of railway links very well to our next presentation. In our sub-region, as mentioned also by Varvara, we have the Northeast Asia Logistics Information Service Network, or what is commonly known as NILNet. This is an initiative under the trilateral cooperation of China, Japan, and Korea. And we have with us today Ms. Keiko Koyama from the Trilateral Cooperation Secretariat to share with us developments on this initiative, as well as other developments in the trilateral cooperation on transport and logistics. On that note, Ms. Keiko, the floor is yours. Looking forward to your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Wait a minute. Can you see the PPT?
Yes, now we could see the PPT. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. I am Keiko Koyama, Economic Affairs Officer of Trilateral Cooperation Secretariat, TCS. Thanks very much to the organizers, ESCAP and GTI for the invitation to today's seminar. It's my great honor to join, and I would like to present the developments in China, Japan, Korea cooperation on transport and logistics. Today, I will mainly introduce trilateral cooperation mechanisms on transport and logistics, NEONAT, and our organization, TCS activities. First of all, let's look at some figures of CJK. China, Japan, Korea are major economies in the region and the world, contributed more than 24% of the world's GDP. In terms of transport and logistics, container port traffic accounts for more than 36%. The total share of shipbuilding deliveries is huge, around 87% in the world. Trilateral cooperation started in 1999. Under the Trilateral Summit, it has already developed into 21 ministerial meetings in various areas, as you can see in the table. China, Japan, Korea Ministerial Conference on Transport and Logistics started in 2006, held biannually in the three countries in rotational basis. So far, 7 meetings have been convened continuously. The next 8th conference is planned to be held this year. Under the Ministerial Conference, there are several major mechanisms, including working level meetings, Northeast Asia Port DG meeting, NEONAT, and other ad hoc experts meetings and joint research to follow up action plans. Ministerial Conference set up 3 goals for the cooperation: creation of a seamless logistics system, establishment of environmentally friendly logistics, achievement of balance between security and efficiency of logistics. Under the 3 goals, the 3 countries formulated 11 action plans and elaborated implementation measures accordingly. Amid the COVID-19 pandemic, the 3 countries held the special session of the 8th Ministerial Conference in virtual format to keep momentum of cooperation and communication. Besides this, a series of directorial meetings were also held quite frequently. 3 parties continue to share information and discuss common challenges brought about by COVID-19, as well as work for preparing the 8th Ministerial Conference. Next, I would like to focus on one of the major joint initiatives, NewNet. NewNet is an abbreviation for Northeast Asia Logistics Information Service Network. It is a system to share and visualize logistics information, container status, and dynamic container vessel status in a timely manner among port logistics panel of the three countries. Of the three countries. By utilizing NewNet, it is expected to reduce work related to checking of cargo's location, reduce inventory quantity, and respond promptly to delay risk. The diagram on the left side shows the visualization of container and vessel information sharing flow from domestic container terminal to container terminal in the other two countries. The information is provided by three independent information systems developed by the three ministries: China Log Inc., Japan Collins, Korea SPIDC. So NewNet is the platform to integrate the information provided by these three systems. If you see the yellow highlighted part, the information is provided by domestic system, for example, Korea's SPIDC, and the information highlighted with the purple part is provided by each of China's Log Inc. or Japan's Collins. So this is what NewNet like. Next, I'd like briefly to introduce trilateral framework of developing NewNet. Recognizing the importance of interconnection of logistic information sharing to promote a seamless and efficient logistics system among the three countries. In 2010, at the third CGK Ministerial Conference, three ministers agreed to establish NewNet. And in 2014, NewNet started its public trial of pilot port servers. Currently, it's already expanded to 31 ports in the three countries. In the whole process of developing NewNet, three ministries established working groups, NewNet Steering Committee and Council meeting, and the NewNet technical meeting to work on the formulation of NewNet standards, unified user management, and so on. As for the future direction and what NewNet is trying to do is to continually improve and promote NewNet standards. It includes the work to strengthen study on possibility of expanding the status to customs clearance standard. Also continually increase the number of ports and explore new service area. Promote its popularization in CJK, and start joint study on intermodal transport from maritime to inland. Last is to strengthen international collaboration, specifically start to promote the interconnection cooperation with Russia, Far East, ASEAN countries, and to carry on discussion with the EU about the possibility of logistics information sharing between Asia and EU. Keep working relationship with ESCAP and other international organizations. This is a map of all the ports currently joining NewNet as of October of last year. China 16 ports, Japan 8 ports, and Korea 7 ports. In total, 31 ports in the three countries. There are several ports systems being updated in China now. Lastly, I will briefly introduce our organization, TCS relevant activities. In the field of transport and logistics, TCS has been developing a comprehensive information portal set focusing on CGK cooperation on transport and logistics. It's taxed by the 3 ministries under the agreement of the 7th Ministerial Conference. The website itself aims to serve not only as the internal communication channel among the relevant ministries, but also to enable relevant other stakeholders to better access to this mechanism. It will incorporate comprehensive information and relevant documents on cooperative projects under the Ministerial Conference. And the website is still in progress of developing and will be open to the public soon. If you are interested, please definitely check our TCS official website. We will post information when it's launched. And the TCS is fully engaged in trilateral cooperation on trade and economy in general. TCS has been attending trilateral ministerial and consultative meetings in 6 areas on the left side, you can see. As for transport and logistics, we have attended a ministerial conference since 2012 and also actively participated in its working level meetings. In addition, we are still exploring our engagement in the mechanism on customs, standards, audit, and finance, which already have existing trilateral frameworks. Besides this, we also conducted joint research and organized projects together with relevant ministries and business associations. Recently, we newly launched the trilateral statistic web page, which is very helpful for research related to CJK and deepening understanding of trilateral cooperation. If you are interested, please also visit this website. That's all of my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Keiko. Thank you very much for that presentation on the trilateral cooperation. Now, to cap the session's discussion and to provide a link to the focus of GTI for session 2, we have Ms. Halin Han from the Korea Institute for International Economic Policy that will present the highlights of the GTI study on regional value chains and logistics network in the Greater Tumen region. So we're looking forward to your presentation, Ms. Halin, which brings us a close to this session, and we move to session 2 afterwards. The floor is yours, Halin. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's such a great pleasure to be again with the GTI and ESCAP joint seminar on the transport issues. And I'm very much honored and delighted to be here again with the participation in the very first seminar of this. What I'm going to do today is to present some of the outcomes of, sorry, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. 1 second.
Yes, we could see it now. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So I was kind of informed about the topic of the session, and it was about the cross-sectoral research and the research, the joint research project that Kiev and the rest of the institutions from the GTI Research Institutions Network, as well as the expert from the Transport Board of the GTI, was an epitome of cross-sectoral research. So I thought it was a great opportunity for me to present the outcomes and how we did it, and kind of present suggestions and opportunities and challenges or things to consider when it comes to kind of connect those 2 different areas of the research into one project. So what I'm going to do throughout the presentation is like this. I'm just going to start with how the research is constructed and how this came up with the to the GTI Research Institutions Network's radar. And then the methodologies would show major findings, and later on, I'm going to just share the thoughts on what to do with the joint research project that kind of covers the 2 different areas. So the joint research project is composed like this. So it's the key parts of the joint research project we conducted from 2019 until the mid 2020 are composed like this. The very first and the major part is the regional value chains. It's conducted by the Research Institutions Network, And then there was a single chapter that was completely devoted to the experts of the Transport Board of the GTI, which was conducted by those experts who have been involved and engaged in the research products regarding the transport for the GTI for a very long time. And Kia, well, I and my colleagues kind of managed the overall research. This is how the contents were like. So we started with the backgrounds, the purposes, and the structure of the studies and the introduction. Then we went into straight to the introducing some sort of a descriptive statistics on the greater Tumen region. Then we kind of introduced a new or novel or somewhat kind of a recent trends in terms of analysis in trade. And fourth, this chapter was kind of contributed by the transport experts in GTI, and then combining those information from the value chains and the logistics networks, we kind of made a propositions for future for building or strengthening the future regional value chains for sustainable development in the region. And then we kind of made a concluding remarks for this chapter 6. So the background, how did we start this research in the first place? So as I stated in my presentation, the center of the production has been on the verge of being shifted to outside of China since 2012. So it is not a recent trend that China has kind of lost its kind of charm as the center of the production, as some of the costs were obviously rising. So and those kind of demand to reshape the global value chains outside of China has been accelerated by the spread of the COVID-19. Everybody, not everybody, but the global enterprises kind of started to shift their production centers out of China to mostly the Southeast Asia, which were kind of close to where their factories were. But what we wanted to suggest was that Greater Tumen region, the GTR, is the very next best alternative place close to China and within China. Also, it kind of involves some parts of the China for stable production of goods. So the purpose was, like I introduced, like I said in the introduction, was to kind of review and go over the existing regional value chains, the logistics networks among the GTI member states, and provide some sort of propositions to enhance and strengthen the regional value chains, if there are any. That would eventually lead us to further integrate regionally and raise the competitiveness and sustainability. So that's most likely the expected outcomes as well. What we did with the methodologies can be divided into 3 sections. In the chapter 2, like I said, we provide a simple and descriptive statistics that kind of gave us a broad or big picture on where we are in terms of regional value chains and of the trade flows based on the very detailed analysis on those trade flows trade flows. So we follow the classification categories from the United Nations. So we rearranged those goods by broad economic category classification, which kind of classify the goods into 3 sections: capital, intermediate, and consumption goods. We also analyzed those goods by the level of the technologies that are applied to produce or manufacture those goods. And we also provided some basic statistics on the trade volumes and their counterparts. In terms of value chain analysis, we kind of borrowed the idea from the OECD. So basically what global value chains are, in a nutshell, it's an international fragmentation of production. It kind of shows us the map of the regions or the countries' positions in terms of the production network. So but we didn't use the global value chains. I mean, GTR is a big region, but it doesn't really represent the global or the entire globe. So we kind of borrowed the global value chains concept and we developed it into a regional value chains. And we kind of mobilized the indicator called Global Load Index that kind of indicates how much those 2 regions or those 2 countries are connected through production of goods by looking into the amount of the trades in intermediate goods. And next, in the logistics networks, they did what the trade experts did was they did study the development of logistics in the respective countries by using the theory and practice of development of spatial infrastructure. They try to provide some ideas on integrating the individual transport and logistics networks that have been already suggested and have been brought up to the table. They try to expand the idea of logistics to marine and railway transport as well. So the major findings, it's not really all. This whole research project kind of covers 300 pages. I'm not gonna go into details of the findings that we had from the research project. What I'm gonna say is that China, Korea, what we did kind of identify the weak spots of the value chains that we can kind of formulate in the Greater Tumen region. And what we can do in terms of to support those or enhance those regional value chains, not just by increasing the amount of some sort of trade negotiations and so on, but also some sort of infrastructure that transport infrastructure that can kind of support the enhancement of the value chains. And while I was kind of a part of this research project, what I thought it was a really good start. I mean, initially what we did was not really about the we didn't include the transport part at the very beginning of this research project. We were I mean, the value chains itself it's a big project, and it covers like 4 countries of the member states of the GTI. So we thought it was already big of a task. But GTI Secretary kind of suggested an idea of including the logistics networks as a separate chapter to why not? It's value chains is about the flow of goods, and it's about the production networks. In order for the production networks to be smooth and seamless, the transport infrastructure is definitely a prerequisite. And if there isn't any, then there's no point of talking about the trade in the first place. So what I saw through this research project, so for one, there's an opportunity. So by combining those like 2 different sectors or 2 different areas, I realized that the policy implications that I can draw from the results of those research were rich and ample, and for all of the member states. Of course, if we combine those like 2 different areas, it generates a synergetic effect across different boards and GTI framework. I mean, we kind of collaborated at the GTI Research Institutions Network, worked with the trade experts, what we never did before, and it definitely was a synergetic effect. And my thought was like, we got one step further, close to cooperation and enhancement of the connectivity, because we are not just talking about, yeah, let's do this, let's kind of strengthen this kind of a trade in this sector, but we can also provide some sort of a concrete suggestions from the transport sector as well. So that's more concrete and kind of a closer step to cooperation. And of course, there is a lot of room for new topics for future research as well. But I wouldn't say it's a challenge, but there are things to be considered before doing a cross-sectoral research. Of course, there must be some sort of process before launching a project of like fine-tuning when integrating different kinds of research. What I realized was that economic analysis and transport analysis were quite different in terms of how they use the data, how they use the statistics, how they describe things. So fine-tuning before, getting into details of how the research is going to be like is definitely required. And blending those like 2 different sectors into one like complete and consistent research is a huge task. It's definitely also important. And above anything else, pitching ideas a lot across those like researchers and listen to what others say very carefully is quite important. I mean, you are on board with multiple researchers, and you can't just be like one maverick leading the research and so on. So it's kind of important to cooperate across the researchers, and then I'm pretty sure we can generate another good cross-sector research. Thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you, Halin. And on that note, in terms of drawing focus on GTI, that sets the stage for our session 2, where we would be hearing insights and interventions from the different GTI sectoral bodies. I now give the floor to GTI Secretariat to moderate session 2.
Okay, thank you, Fee. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now in session 2 of our seminar. So in this part, well, we get no PPT presentation, and the participants will expected to share their insights and experiences on how cross-sectoral linkages could be strengthened within the GTI framework. And well, since we are well behind the schedule, I would suggest that participants will to be as brief as possible, preferably not exceeding 3 or 5 minutes. So the floor is open, and I invite Mr. Hirofumi Ari, Director of Research Division and Senior Research Fellow from ARENA. He's also a transport expert group. So, Mr. Hirofumi, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much for your kind attention. I will try to be very brief, keeping time. So first of all, anyway, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the organizers of this seminar. It is, of course, my great honor to be here to share my views on the transport issues in this region. And before talking about the specific issues, I would like to emphasize my general view on today's topic. As many previous speakers noted, we are now amid of COVID-19 pandemic, and which has reminded us that accurate diagnosis is essential for treating disease. And I think the proper diagnosis is essential also for the regional cooperation in the transport in this region. From this perspective, I would like highlight 3 issues as follows. First, we need consistent statistical data. The lack of proper statistical data is one of the key problems which the member of GTI transport experts encountered while conducting the previous trans-GTR corridor surveys. Actually, there is no consistent statistical data. For example, on the cargo volume or number of passengers passing through the national borders in this region. Secondly, there needs to be evaluation from the user side. Many government officials and stakeholders often announce that they have conducted various measures for improvement of transport connectivity in the region. But unfortunately, there are very little evaluation of how much these measures improved the efficiency of business in this region. I mean, how much these measures improve the business of the transport and logistic companies and manufacturers, as well as the trading company. So in this connection, I think as an example, it will be helpful to utilize the information sharing sheet prepared by the GTI LCC, Local Cooperation Committee, because the local governments are close to the practice on site. Thirdly, it is necessary to communicate with the business society. In Japan, for example, very little business people are aware of the improvement of this transport connectivity in this region. So we need appropriate information that would be very interesting for the Japanese business people. For example, if we tell them
Hello. I think we've Mr. Arai, are you still online? Mr. Arai, are you still online? I think Mr. Arai has been disconnected.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Okay, all right.
May I continue?
Yes, please.
A few minutes, just a few minutes. So shortly, yeah, I will conclude my short intervention, repeating my major message today. So without any accurate diagnosis, no treatment does work. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Okay, Mr. Rai, thank you very much for your very interesting input. And I pass the floor to Mikhail Khalosha, Assistant Research Director, Maritime State University, named after Admiral Nevelskoy from Russia. He is also Transport Expert Group. So, Mr. Khalosha, the floor is yours.
Good evening. I'm very glad to see your faces, and many thanks for possibility to comment our common ideas. And the first comment is about policy direction. The GTI regional strategy is based on 5 policy directions, and our offer is to transform these 5 directions into new 7 updated directions. And the second comment is about specific projects. Very briefly, to identify promising projects, we need to pay attention to initiatives arising from business community. Moreover, we still need to come to common understanding of basic information for analyzing the situation and making decisions. To do this, we need to create 2 mechanisms. One is general statistic, and the second, it is a general analysis of the situation to generate new ideas. Some more details. First, for logistics flows related to GTI mandate, it is necessary to develop and maintain a single or unified database of transport statistics. This requires, the first, to agree on the terminology used, nomenclature items, directions of transportations, and so on. Second is to organize to collection of information in countries and from countries. And the third is to organize and maintain information between countries in GTI. Secondly, to study market demand and develop proposals for organizing new transport schemes in the GTI. It is necessary to organize constant monitoring of the performance of existing roads and the emergence of new ideas, analysis of options for development of existing and creation of new transport schemes, a mechanism for approving and promoting specific proposals for development projects in the field of transport and logistic infrastructure, and a mechanism for developing proposals for solving emerging organizational organizational problem and eliminations non-physical barriers. Thank you for attention. It's all.
Mr. Kalasha. Now I pass the floor to Mr. Sergei Mikhnevich from Northeast Asia Business Association, Managing Director, Department of International Multilateral Cooperation and Integration, Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs. Well, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, for this introduction, I'd like to be as brief as our previous colleagues, but sorry if I will not succeed in this brief speech. Well, as our previous speakers of our session and of the first session as well mentioned, the current situation related to the COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated the extreme interdependence and fragility of the modern world. Well, the impact of the disease on the global economy and global and regional value chains is devastating. That's general truth, unfortunately. Well, and the transport was not only one of the most affected sectors, but it reiterated its particular importance for the complex and sustainable development of every economy and every sector around the globe, from the smallest ones up to the global level. Well, international and domestic dimensions of the sector are mutually complementary and depend on each other. That's not a secret. And so no country can succeed in development its transport sector separately without taking into consideration international aspects. And on the other hand, the deep engagement in international cooperation is not a guarantee of success. Well, if domestic difficulties and bottlenecks are not settled. For the regional business and the Northeast Asia Business Association's members, like the RSPP I represent today, two main issues are of particular importance in this context. Namely, they are the conducive and stable environment for doing business in the region and mechanisms for collaboration and projects implementation. The latter cover also the institutional facilities, resources, and information exchange of difficulties and opportunities. Well, in the challenging times we face today, only joint efforts of the national and international authorities, business and society to overcome the negative consequence of the crisis can help us to succeed. So we need to emphasize the importance of the constructive dialogue and coordination of policy actions between all stakeholders at the domestic and international level, like we have today. Our country's authorities clearly understand this interdependence between national and international levels of cooperation, which is reflected in the top-level documents, such as the draft transport strategy of the Russian Federation until 2035, or adopted last year, December, strategic directions for developing the Eurasian economic integration until 2025. These strategies not only focus on the problems of national and Eurasian transport sectors. They also pay much attention to the development of international transport routes and collaboration with our partners in the Asia-Pacific and Europe, and as well as to the special development of our countries. It's worth mentioning that business significantly contributed to the development of the above documents, and we hope that the complete implementation of them, in conjunction with documents under deliberation, such as the GTI transport strategy and midterm action plan, will enable the sustainable development of the sector and provide various synergetic effects for the entire economies. Well, and among the issues raised in the documents and emphasized by the businesses, I'd like to mention today the following ones. The first will be the development of appropriate multimodal transport and cross-border infrastructure to settle the problems of bottlenecks and broaden their transport capacities. Colleagues, the previous speakers mentioned many things about it, so do not need to extend. The second point is harmonization of regulatory frameworks and practical aspects of cooperation, including interoperable and comprehensive single window mechanisms and electronic data exchange, providing seamless, paperless, and smooth cooperation on the basis of the effective digital instruments. The third point will be the widening of the range of financial instruments for investments and operational activities. It's impossible to do business without money. That's not the secret. And the companies draw attention of authorities and of us to this problem. We also need to mention the information exchange on the existing difficulties and possible opportunities for the sectoral development and for the situation in other ones. So the last point will be the coordination of strategies and policy actions taken into consideration spillover effects between various sectors. We suppose that introduction of the adaptive integrated logistics network is connected with the mentioned issues, and it relates to the complex trade facilitation and development of resilient supply chains. It's important to ensure the smooth and stable supply of such things as food and medical goods, especially in difficult times we have today. And this aspect was in the focus of the B20, Business 20 mechanisms this year. I represent also the Russian business. I have, well, not represent the Russian business, but I help to coordinate the participation of the Russian business in this mechanism. And we, with our colleagues from other B20 members, have, well, plenty of work in this direction this year. I'd like to mention that our companies constantly work on implementation of the practical projects in the transport sector. So the Russian railways invest in the development of rail cross-border points and hard infrastructure. And company also introduces digital tools such as navigating electronic seal mechanism and information system for information exchange with the Russian customs service in the process of the export-import operations. I'd like also to say a couple of words about the Agro Express project aimed at the gaining involvement of micro, small and medium-sized enterprises producing food to foreign markets. I'd like also to mention United Transport and Logistics Company, Eurasian Railway Alliance. I see some of their representatives take part in our seminar today. The company implemented an effective scheme of providing services for transportation of containers by regular container block trains on the route China-Europe-China, contributing to integration in the greater Eurasia space. Serious efforts are also made to enhance the capacities of the Russian ports and roadways for the seamless integration of various transports under the multimodal international transport corridors. I'm sure that Mr. Halosha, in case he wants, he will comment on the current work. I'd like to say one thing, that the schemes of international transport corridors such as Primoria 1 and Primoria 2 have been developed under the GTI framework and then introduced in the policy actions and political practice of our country. We think that the step forward harmonization of the work being done in various countries will be the preparation of the Blue Book of transport connectivity in the region. Moreover, this document should consider the situation not only in the GTR, Greater Tumen region, or the Asia-Pacific, but also in the Greater Eurasia macro-region. The Blue Book can cover the regulation stance, practical aspects of cooperation, difficulties and opportunities, as well as resources for cooperation, and even provide the essentials for the project cooperation. Well, we suppose that the close cooperation between the Northeast Asia Business Association, the Northeast Asia Exim Banks Association, ESCAP Sustainable Business Network, ASEAN and APEC Business Council, and other multilateral institutions of cooperation can contribute to the pipeline of projects and dialogue with the authorities regarding the most topical transport issues and situation in other sectors. Probably the Greater Eurasia Business Association, whose project we are developing with our partners today, can unite the voices of the macro-region's business in the dialogue with the authorities and project implementation in transport and not only in transport sectors. Thank you, colleagues.
For your very interesting input, and just to save time, I pass the floor to Mr. Jacob Kim, General Manager, Global Business Support Center, Busan Economic Promotion Agency, Busan Metropolitan City, Republic of Korea. Mr. Kim, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Yes, we could hear you. Please go ahead.
I'm the manager from the city government, and today I'd like to present a project for the facilitation of new multimodal freight routes. Busan Metropolitan City has initiated a committee in which Russia, China, Japan, and Korea's municipal government have participated in order to facilitate economic cooperation and tourism industry as well as logistics in Pan-East Sea area. In this regard, we are carrying out various businesses, and at the core, we have got a project for the facilitation of new multimodal freight routes. And we are pursuing two multimodal freight routes. One is Busan-Haeran 1, and which is also called in Chinese Binhai and in Russian Primorye. Busan-Haeran 1 connecting Sifenhai, China, Vladivostok, Russia, and Busan Port of Korea, and Busan-Haeran 2 connecting Huncheon, China, Zarodino, Russia, and Busan Port, Korea. We also have got 5 sub-projects, and including the carrying out promotion activities regarding the project, providing incentives to export-import cargo companies using the routes, offering financial support to shippers who open and operate new multimodal freight routes, dispatching public-private joint delegations to facilitate the multimodal logistics with the aim of creating new cargo volume, and lastly, carrying out exchange activities for logistics experts. As I've mentioned, we have initiated this project since 2017, and we are expanding the supportive budget every year to facilitate this project. However, we have got challenges in improving the cargo volume, not least because of the COVID-19. We have a border closure and movement restrictions, and Busan-Haeran 1 and 2 routes have been halted. That is why we have a very unstable environment. In this regard, we have set out new incentives policies to open and operate the northern part of the multimodal freight route. However, we still have got a lot of challenges to create a new cargo volume. In this regard, I'd like to have more cooperative commitment and engagement from Korea, China, and Russia. And today I'd like to suggest 3 measures to tackle those challenges. And first, I'd like to suggest to boost up the cooperation among the local governments of Korea, China, and Russia. And in this regard, we have initiated the supportive process to facilitate the Busan-Haeran 2 route. However, we still have room to improve more. And in case of China, they have to push the one belt, one road policy to secure the sea route. However, I believe that the supportive project has been terminated, and Korea as well, including Busan Metropolitan City, are carrying out the supportive project to facilitate the Busan-Haeran 2 route. And Russia is also I know that they are planning to invest in modernizing the railway and port facilities. However, still we have got a lot of room to invest more. And in this regard, I think other stakeholders evaluate those projects and discuss how to step up our cooperation first. And second, I think we need to make an economic cooperative model to create the cargo volume in these areas. Russia's abundant raw material and China's cost-effective assembly capability and Korea and Japan's consumption markets will boost up our economic cooperative model, especially in fisheries and fishery assembly industries. And in this regard, we need more practical measures to streamline the custom process, and we need to modernize the railways and logistics facilities of Russia. And thankfully, the Chinese Jilin province and Korea's Busan and Gyeongnam area are home to world-class railway and railway parts industries. If we can have more support from the central government level, I believe that we can modernize those facilities in a more faster manner. And lastly, we need a joint quarantine system to tackle the prolonged COVID-19 pandemic. As you know, Korea has got the K quarantine system, and we are doing the quarantine system for the import cargo from China. And throughout the consultation with the Russia, China, Korea, and we have adopted the quarantine system for specific routes, and I think we need to respond jointly to the COVID-19 situation. And in case of the Kamcheon port of Busan, we have the pre-quarantine system for Russian officials as well. I believe that those challenges will be adopted as main agendas of the GTI, and would like to have the continued consultation on that issue. And Busan Metropolitan City will actively engage in activities of the GTI Secretariat as well as member cities' activities. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for your intervention, and pass the floor to Mr. Florian Miss, GTI Development Partner and the Project Director from GIZ. Florian, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I will be as brief as possible. I will be looking at what was said before more from an organizational perspective. Within GIZ, for example, projects in a certain region are always required to do cross-sectoral cooperation and working on small-scale projects annually. For these small-scale projects annually, we usually have a kind of budget to conduct a certain study. For example, our project working together with other GIZ projects working on the topics of finance, of trade, of agriculture. And then we come up with guides or small-scale analyses on how to combine approaches for better resilience of logistic chains, or how to use digital tools to include agricultural SMEs better into logistical chains. So this is an annual process where we always give afterwards feedback or with recommendations to headquarters and to our commissioning ministries to gather new approaches and to gain new perspectives of implementation possibilities and small-scale projects. So this recommendation would be for GTI in a similar way, that we have the Transport Board, Trade and Investment Committee, Agricultural Committee, NEA business associations and others to kind of coordinate this within the GTI Secretariat here in Beijing and to support cross-sectoral cooperation with an annual fund, small scale, let's say $10,000 to $15,000 in that regard, to kind of give a motivation to GTI members and to the line ministries and other stakeholders of the different boards and committees within GTI to explicitly work on cross-sectoral cooperation topics, which might be with regard to transport, trade, agriculture, or the business association, something like traceability, paperless trade, or other topics that were mentioned before, and then are organized within the GTI Secretariat. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Florian. You've been very brief. So with this, we exhausted the agenda of session 2. And I pass the floor to Oyinair for the closing session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smorodin. Thank you very much, Mr. Smorodin. And now we conclude our seminar with a brief closing session. May I now give the floor to Mr. Ganbol Baasanjab for his remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Fee, and thank you, colleagues. Dear participants, thank you for your fruitful discussions and enriching exchange of views in the last couple of hours. We highly appreciate your support. Your insights have been valuable, and we will share a summary report in the next few days for your reference. We envisage this seminar as a springboard to move us forward with innovative approaches to further strengthen our cooperation and partnerships on connectivity in the sub-region. I believe that the broad-based engagement this afternoon across sectors is a good start for us, and we will work with you closely to keep the momentum going. Recognizing the nature of future challenges, especially the opportunities in the post-COVID recovery, we hope that the sectorial bodies will consider joint project activities utilizing cross-sectoral cooperation and coordination to strengthen sub-regional connectivity. In this regard, we at ESCAP reaffirms our commitment to work with GTI member countries in line with our GTI ESCAP Memorandum of Understanding. As our partnership enters a new phase, I believe that our cross-sectoral and broader engagement set us on a good standing to address challenges in our sub-region to building resilient connectivity in line with sustainable development. Discussions and presentations and the views today, I find it very timely and valuable and enriching, especially those from our newly joined networks, such as TCS. I find it very enriching, our discussions, making our engagement across borders very deep and broad-based coverage. Again, on behalf of ESCAP colleagues, I would like to extend our deep appreciation for your continued support. And I'd like to thank Andrei Nikolaevich, GTI Director Andrei Smorodin, and Director General Yo Myung-soo from the Transport Bureau, Ministry of Land Infrastructure, Transport of Republic of Korea for co-organizing this very productive, effective, and also efficient, very efficient seminar today. We will keep in touch with your colleagues. And meantime, please stay safe and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Basanjav. Now may I give the floor to Mr. Andrei Smorodin for his remarks.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank everybody for their participation and valuable inputs during the seminar. And I believe that we had a very comprehensive and inspiring discussions on the matter. I'm also glad to see that we are raising the profile of the seminar, evolving it into a more representative ESCAP-GTI event with participation from various sectors. Well, today we have more than or close to 50 persons registered and participating. I hope this, to maintain this practice in future. Tomorrow during the GTI Transport Board meeting, we are going to present the outcomes of the seminar to the Transport Board and discuss proposals for follow-up GTI ESCAP joint activities. Well, I would like to take this opportunity to extend once again my sincere thanks to everybody. Wish you all good health and success in all your endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smorodin. And now, lastly, may I now give the floor to Mr. Yo Myung-soo for his remarks.
Yeah, okay. First of all, I would like to thank the staff of the GTI Secretariat and the presenters for preparing for today's meeting. And today's seminar enlightened us about the importance of inter-country cooperation and the challenge ahead in our path towards shared prosperity in Northeast Asia. Once again, I extend my sincere appreciation to the researchers and speakers who prepared so much for such excellent and valuable presentation today. The GTI Secretariat will summarize the topics discussed in today's seminar and report them at the 10th Transport Board meeting, which will be held tomorrow. Delegates of GTI member countries and staff members of the GTI Secretariat, I'll see you tomorrow. Those of you who are not attending tomorrow's meeting, thank you for joining us today. I hope next year we'll be able to meet each other face to face in Russia. Next year's country chair will share our thought once more. With this, I would like to announce the end of today's seminar. Thank you very much. See you. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.